How can a few tiny islands make gas stations run dry, send your favorite gadgets into limbo, and throw the global economy into chaos? These uninhabited rocks hold the power to ignite a conflict that could reshape the world as we know it. Consider this: a collection of little, apparently unimportant islands dispersed over the vast seas of the South China Sea. They're so tiny that you can hardly see them on our satellite image. Let's take a closer look for a second. There are no busy cities, huge industries, and very few permanent people. While many of these islands are crowded with buildings, often of a military nature, some remain completely empty. However, these islands, the Paracel Islands, have the potential to spark a global battle unparalleled in scale. This collection of uninhabited rocks is claimed by 3 countries: China, Vietnam, and Taiwan. It contains the key to immense natural riches, strategic military control, and dominion over one of the world's busiest commerce lanes. Today, we'll take you on a deep dive into the Paracel's enormous significance, dissect the layers of strife around them, and explain why this issue might have far-reaching consequences for everyone. The heart of global trade. The South China Sea isn't just a big blue expanse, it's a global commercial superhighway. Imagine this: 40% of the world's trade, worth over $3.4 trillion a year, flows through these waters. That's everything from oil tankers carrying black gold to cargo ships packed with electronics, clothing, and even your favorite snacks. Now, picture this: an oil ship blockade in this region. Suddenly, energy prices skyrocket, businesses halt, and your long-awaited new phone? Well, it's stuck halfway across the globe. Not great, right? But why is controlling the Paracels such a big deal for trade? Their strategic position allows any occupying force to influence or outright dominate this vital waterway. Imagine someone setting up a toll booth on your way to work, charging you just to pass through. That's essentially what controlling these islands means, except on a massive global scale. Whoever controls the Paracels can monitor cargo, impose fees, or, worst case, block ships entirely. Think about it. No more oil deliveries, no more electronics, no more anything. It's the power that keeps neighboring nations and global superpowers on edge. And it's not just about trade, it's about controlling who thrives and struggles in the global economy. Why are these islands economically important? The South China Sea is more than just water. It's a global shipping superhighway. Around 40% of global trade, worth over $3.4 trillion annually, flows through here. Picture it: oil tankers transporting black gold and cargo ships delivering electronics, clothing, and food. Any disruption here could wreak havoc on economies worldwide, from Japan to Europe. Now imagine a blockade. Suddenly you're waiting months for that new gaming console or smartphone. The strategic position of the Paracel Islands is pivotal. Controlling them offers leverage over shipping lanes, including the power to monitor cargo, impose tolls, or block access. This control isn't just about trade, it's a global power move. Have there been encounters over these islands? Absolutely. The waters around the Paracel Islands have seen numerous tense encounters. For example, in May, the USS Halsey, a US Navy destroyer, sailed near the Paracels, asserting navigational rights under international law. China responded by deploying naval and air forces to monitor and warn the ship, accusing the US of violating its sovereignty. The US, in turn, labeled China's claims as unlawful. Another situation took place earlier this year. A violent incident occurred when Chinese personnel reportedly boarded a Vietnamese fishing boat near the Paracels, injuring several fishermen. Vietnam issued strong protests, condemning what they described as brutal treatment, while China accused the boat of illegal fishing. Historical disputes over the Paracel Islands. The Paracel Islands' contentious history stretches back decades. In 1974, a major clash occurred between China and South Vietnam, known as the Battle of the Paracel Islands. At the time, South Vietnam controlled part of the archipelago, while China laid claim to the entire area. The battle resulted in China taking full control of the islands, a position it maintains today. This event marked a turning point, intensifying territorial disputes that persist to this day. Vietnam has never relinquished its claim. To this day, Hanoi refers to the islands as the Hoang Sa Archipelago, asserting its sovereignty over them. The scars of the 1974 clash serve as a backdrop for ongoing tensions, including confrontations between fishing vessels and coast guards. Under the waves, a treasure trove of resources. Natural treasures lurk under the turquoise waters of the South China Sea, which is why the Paracels are so popular. The area is estimated to contain up to 11 billion barrels of oil and 180 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Securing access to these reserves is vital for countries with high energy needs, such as China, to support its fast economic expansion and industrialization. Vietnam, too, sees these resources as critical to its energy independence and economic stability. However, the fight for resources does not stop with oil and gas. The South China Sea is also one of the world's most productive fishing areas, accounting for around 10% of worldwide fisheries productivity. Millions of people in Southeast Asia rely on these rivers for their livelihood and food security. Losing access to these fisheries is a direct danger to the life of people in Vietnam and the Philippines, rather than merely an economic setback. When you include the rising problem of overfishing and climate change, the struggle for these limited resources becomes even more severe. A military chessboard. Now, let us discuss the importance of the Paracel's military. These islands are a strategic cornerstone in China's contentious Nine-Line Claim, which covers about 90% of the South China Sea. China has basically converted the Paracel Islands into unsinkable aircraft carriers by militarizing them. Satellite photographs reveal constructed islands with airstrips, missile systems, and radar stations. These military installations allow China to monitor maritime traffic, project influence far beyond its borders, and possibly block access to foreign ships in the event of a confrontation. Vietnam, which also claims the Paracel Islands, sees China's militarization as an existential danger. For Vietnam, these islands are more than simply tactically significant. They represent a symbol of resistance to foreign dominance, an attitude strongly ingrained in the country's history of standing up to more powerful opponents. Taiwan, which is in its fight for international recognition, views the Paracels as part of a larger war for sovereignty. However, the militarization of the Paracels affects more than simply these three states. The United States has a strong interest in preserving freedom of navigation in the South China Sea, and it conducts frequent naval patrols and exercises there. These activities, although benign, are considered provocative by China, resulting in regular near encounters between Chinese and American boats. Each of these meetings increases the potential of an unintentional escalation that might lead to a full-fledged conflict. The role of history. The Paracels dispute is more than simply a modern-day fight. It is a historically significant war. China rests its claim on historical documents going back to the Han Dynasty, claiming that its fishermen and merchants had been using the islands for generations. Vietnam disputes with its historical maps and documentation, claiming control over the islands from the 17th century. These opposing narratives are more than simply legal disputes. They are a source of national pride. For China, regaining the Paracels is part of a larger objective of national rejuvenation. But for Vietnam, keeping them means maintaining its independence and sovereignty. The global stakes. The battle over the Paracel Islands seems to be localized, yet it has far-reaching global ramifications. At its center is a geopolitical competition between the United States and China, both striving for dominance in the South China Sea. The United States, which is dedicated to ensuring freedom of navigation, often undertakes naval operations in the area, contesting China's enormous maritime claims. China, on the other hand, sees control over the Paracels as critical to its sovereignty and strategic objectives, seeing them as a historical right and a fundamental component of its climb to global dominance. Beyond the superpower competition, countries such as Japan and Australia have a great interest in safeguarding the security of this vital waterway, which transports more than 1/3 of world maritime traffic. Disruption here would jeopardize supply networks, raise energy costs, and destabilize global economies. Even distant parties such as the European Union have stepped in, emphasizing respect for international law and undertaking naval patrols to challenge China's expanding militarization of the area. The Paracels also point out flaws in international government. The 2016 arbitration verdict that invalidated China's claims has yet to be implemented, raising questions about the efficiency of international law. If left unchecked, China's activities might encourage other countries to flout legal frameworks in disputed areas such as the Arctic or the East China Sea, raising global tensions even further. Finally, the militarization of the Paracels creates a disturbing precedent. China's transformation of these islands into military strongholds demonstrates a domination paradigm that might inspire similar methods abroad. The Paracel Islands dispute has far-reaching consequences for global stability and the future of international rules. Problem: risk of miscalculation. The greatest risk in the Paracels isn't only opposing claims, it's the possibility of mistakes. In such a tense and militarized climate, even minor incidents, such as a collision between Navy boats or an airspace violation, can set off a chain reaction. When numerous countries conduct military drills nearby, the margin for mistake is razor thin. One error might spark a broader confrontation involving not just the claimants, but also their friends. A conflict between China and Vietnam, for example, may bring in the United States, resulting in a clash between the world's two greatest economies. Solution: cooperation and diplomacy. So, how do we defuse this ticking time bomb? Joint development agreements provide one possible option. Under such arrangements, the claimants may agree to cooperatively use the Paracel's resources without settling the underlying sovereignty question. This would benefit both parties economically while decreasing the motive for violence. For example, Vietnam and China may work together on oil and gas exploration, sharing earnings according to a mutually agreed upon formula. Another option is international arbitration. While China rejected the Permanent Court of Arbitration's 2016 verdict, ongoing diplomatic pressure from the international community may induce conformity with international law. Regional organizations like ASEAN might potentially play a more active role in resolving the conflict by advocating for the approval of the South China Sea Code of Conduct, which establishes standards for behavior in disputed regions. The broader lessons. The Paracels represent a microcosm of greater global concerns. They depict the fight for resources in a time of scarcity, the confrontation between emerging and existing nations, and the ongoing role of diplomacy in conflict resolution. If the world can reach a peaceful conclusion to this disagreement, it might serve as a model for settling other territorial disputes, ranging from the Arctic to the Middle East. While the Paracels are often seen as a sign of war, they also offer a chance for collaboration, invention, and diplomacy. History has shown that even the most entrenched conflicts may be addressed through communication and compromise. By remaining educated, pushing for peaceful solutions, and holding our leaders responsible, we can all help shape a more secure and peaceful future. Thank you for sticking with me throughout the video. Now, if you want to find out why Bolivia has a navy despite being landlocked, click this following video. If you don't want to miss any of my future videos, subscribe to Story Compass and activate the bell. See you next time.